Also one of the most iconic pairings of McLaren and Honda as well. If you can find one of these, get onto it. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and today I've had a bit of a treat to look at. I've got this really old original release of a Tamiya F1 kit. So this particular one is the McLaren MP4. This is the car which was used in the 1988 season and pretty much dominated. So it was driven by the incredible pairing of Prost. Prost was at McLaren, and then there was the addition of that year with Senna. And this is probably the most dominant car that McLaren have ever produced. Very well designed, quite groundbreaking. It was also the first time that Honda moved from Williams and powered the McLaren team and powered the victory. Out of the, was it 16 races maybe? I think they won 15, which is quite an amazing achievement. Now there's quite a few different technological advances. So it was a very low slung car. It was all carbon fiber parts, so bodywork, chassis. It was a monocoque carbon fiber chassis. It was part of the turbo era of engines. So back then they had two different classes, but they were all racing at the same time. So you had your turbo cars, which had the smaller engines, 1.5 litre, and then you had your naturally aspirated, which were the bigger engines with V8s. But it was always the turbo cars that had all the power. Smaller, lighter, and it was quite a time to watch motor racing. The 80s, 90s was a very popular time for motorsports around the world, and at that time Tamiya was making a lot of interesting kits. So the latest F1 kit was always anticipated at the end of the season, because obviously during the middle of the season they wouldn't be giving away any of the design secrets, and then this would be released the following year. And that sort of culminated in quite a few different Paris-Dakar kits and a lot of rally car kits as well. So let's have a closer look inside this very collectible kit, and it'll be a bit of a walk down memory lane. If you're lucky enough, you may be able to find one of these kits still on the collector's market. They will be going for quite a penny. All right, now I've built quite a number of these in all the years I've been involved in this. So let's go through some of the bits. I've just pulled out this bag here. So this is a bag of tyres. Now at the time, Tamiya made these tyres. They were solid, rubber, and I have the seam down the center. So we would usually get that sanded down to give it a more even look. They didn't have the printing processes like they did in the later years, so any of the branding on the tyres wasn't there. It was on a decal. And you see there's some loose screws in there as well, and therefore holding the wheels on to the chassis. Oh, there's one screw there, and there'll be another few in there. All right, so that's your tyre bag. All right, over here, just have to show you like this, because there's a bag, still fully sealed with all the parts. So there's multiple sprues in there. The black sprue here, which has got mainly the suspension arms on it, and then the white, which is bodywork. Okay, so you've got your wheels here, you've got your wide rears and your narrower fronts. You got your steering rod here. So you see how there's got the C-cups on the ends. That's how it clicks into the uprights, so that when it's all fully constructed, you have moving wheels. So it looks like they're steering. You've got suspension arms here, and also some push rods to the shocks. Might be able to see here, this part here has got some of the shocks mounted in there with the push rod going to the bottom arm. Over here you see parts of the uprights. So these are actually the ducts to draw air into the upright and then drive it over the brakes to cool them down. So they had those fitted on the front and the back. Over here you can see the disc brakes. Okay, you can see what sort of stopping power they needed. They're twin caliper. They probably had 3-pot calipers on the front, 2 pots at the back. And then these larger arms here, larger ones are for the front. These smaller arms here are for the rear. Okay, then when you go into the bodywork, now the Tamiya kits are really nice because they had removable cowlings. So this is a top cowling which you could pull off, and then you can see the full engine detail and cockpit detail and all the radiators in there as well. So it consists of the main cowl here with the front wing attached. You might be able to see the side dams of the front wing here. I'll see if I can spin it around. So you've got air ducts for directing the air from the side pods into the cooling radiators. Got the radiators here. There's some more radiators here. These are ducts that would have gone through the bodywork. We'll have a closer look at that when we go through the manual. Here you've got these big side panels for the rear wing. The aerofoils for the rear wing as well. So it had multiple foils. Here you have the sealing of the cowl, where the arms would poke out here with the drive shaft going through the center. So that's at the back. And then there's more dams and rear vision mirrors are here. All right, so there's quite a lot of parts in that one bag. Pop that there. All right, then we come to the final sheet here. Okay, so this is quite interesting. So you can see here, you've got the full piece, one-piece monocoque. So the carbon fiber monocoque, it's quite an amazing molding how they've got all this all in one piece. You can see here where this would pick up the air through the side pods and then direct it through the radiators through the side here. Engine would fit at the back. You've got this huge, what do they call that again? Under tray. Okay, so that's the bottom, and you see all the ground effects at the back and the exhaust exits. Okay, so that's how they got their downforce as they were going fast. You just see the sheet here. So this is a sheet which has the Goodyear decals on it for the tyres. Now they're quite an interesting decal because they're actually a two-part. So they're printed in reverse. You need to carefully peel them off the backing, and then you wet the surface of the tyre, and then you press them on and apply more water onto the decal paper. Bit tricky, but once you get the hang of it, they actually look really good because they have actually no film. That's quite noticeable once it's on the tyre. Once it's dry, you just put some flat clear on it and it seals all in. Over here you can see the exhausts. Okay, so you can see the turbos here. So there's twin turbos. You got your intake here. That's the induction, I think. Over here you got bits of the, you got your cockpit seat there. So one of the other main features of this particular car design is to get it very low, the seating position was very low. So the driver was basically reclined. So practically almost lying down. All right, so here you've got parts of the engine. So when you look at it, it's not a very big engine at all. It's only 1.5 litre, but super power. Okay, so at the back there, you've got the gearbox. Drive shafts will pop out of there. And then you have this upright to support the rear wing. Over here, there's a few belts and pulleys, anti-roll bar connections. And then we'll take it around here. You've got the clear section here. So you've got that for the front windshield. You've got a clear part for the rear brake light. Well, actually, it's not really a brake light, it's just flashing so you can see it during the wet. Here your drive shafts down there. Here's the other side to the gearbox and the engine. Steering wheel. Actually, you get bigger turbos right there. See that? You got the two turbines. You got more radiators. Over here's the top of the stack to the engine. Various reservoirs for fluids, and there's the top of the engine there, so you can see the V6 there. Very nice kit, brings back a lot of memories this. Okay, so here you can see this is the top where the monocoque just sits inside. So you see the bottom of the monocoque is open, so it'll be sealed with the under tray. Okay, so that had all the chassis components on it. Let's pop it over here. All right, inside here we've got the decal sheet. Now this is quite a rare decal sheet because this actually has the Marlboro decals on it. Because after some time, tobacco sponsorship wasn't included in the decal sheets, and these had to be purchased as an aftermarket. So these are all your wing decals here, and then you've got your side cowling and all the shells, and then this is all your fluorescent red. Okay, so this is for getting the Marlboro fluorescent red color on the whole bodywork. Now this is an option to painting. Actually, when I was building these, I would prefer to paint them because you get a much deeper finish. because no matter how much you try, the edges of these will always have a slightly darker tone to the inside print. And when you put it all together, you get these odd differentiations in tone. Now, painting these are quite easy, so you probably won't be able to see, but on the cowling, it will actually have very fine lines marked where you mask. Okay, so one corner just starts here, and it goes all the way across, and then down the bottom. So basically, you'll spray that all a gloss white first, and then you mask off your fluoro. Okay, so the middle section will be white, and then there's another line across the front here full of fluoro for this sash just around the cockpit. Now, it's very clever that they did that, because all the other manufacturers never gave you guidelines, which makes it really tough. You have to measure everything out, and you can never get it perfect. So that's another one of those clever things, considering this is a kit that goes back to 1988. Okay, so that's all your decals there. Quite comprehensive. You've got the options of the two drivers. So there's Senna and also Prost. So obviously you've got two different numbers as well. And you can see there's the Honda, classic Honda symbol. Okay, now let's see what else is in here. So we've got a guide here. So this is an indication of where the decals go. Okay, so this particular one here is for, it's for both actually. So this section here shows you which numbers of decals to use for Prost. And over here they're actually showing the 12, which is used for Senna. So obviously the name decals are going to change as well, so you get your options there. Okay, so over here, same thing. So this has actually got the slashes across here. So you notice there's no Marlboro. So that would have been used in the Japanese Grand Prix, or on some of the later models, or even in particular countries where tobacco advertising wasn't allowed. And Australia was one of those after a little time. So this would have been quite an early kit. So full Marlboro there. Okay. All right, let's go through the manual, which is quite interesting. Okay, so looking at a vintage manual, the layout is pretty much the same. So it's still multilingual. You've got English, German, French, and Japanese. So you've got the history across the front. Over here, this doesn't change much. So you got your tool guide, and then you got a paint guide, and all those paint codes are still current. And then they use the same symbols here for what areas to paint and what colors. So part numbers for the part, and then different shades for different colors to paint as you go. So generally F1 car, you would try to paint as much as you can before you assemble, just because it's such a complicated build. So as you can see here, let's start with the monocoque, and then you've got the strut across the front. You got your wishbones going across the top there, lower wishbone, and then you've got your ducts here that go into the side pod. This actually folds out. All right, and then there's quite a lot of construction here. So you got your monocoque here, you've got the radiators going in. The under tray is just here. Now with these particular components here where the engine and the exhaust are, that would be a particular burnt sort of color because they had heat deflection material, so you didn't go through the carbon fiber because it would have been really hot there. And then you can see on the underside of the under tray, so these particular parts here where the exhaust exits is also a different color. So XF1 is your black for the carbon, and then those particular parts are painted X11 silver, just as metallic deflectors. Over here you've got this dial thing. I can't remember what that is. I think that's to actually change the brake bias of the car as it's being driven. Here we start getting into the cockpit detail. So you've got the seat that goes in. So there's particular decals here. The Boss decals go onto the seat belts. You've got the disc brake ducts on the uprights, they're being clipped into place. Okay, so they're clipped in because they're actually going to be working for the steering. You've got the dashboard with the steering wheel. So interesting to see, the dashboard is actually separate to the steering wheel in those days. These days it's all incorporated all in the wheel. And then here you've got another cooler. So they've probably got radiators, water radiators, and also oil coolers built into there. Over here we start building the engine and gearbox component. So you've got your V6 engine here getting put together. That's the rear wing mount. So we've got the lower arms going into place, back of the gearbox. And then that particular sub-assembly is dropped into the under tray in situ with the cockpit. So over here we started making the exhaust with the turbos, and so the massive turbo there. So you got that going on both sides, and then here you've got the intake ducts. Okay, so the top part's going to be white because that's poking up through the bodywork. Then that's mounted on top of one of these coolers. And you see that that's the intake into the turbo. Okay, and that's what it looks like when it's completed. Now before I go on, so as you can see how complicated this particular internals is, it's really important that you probably dry assemble a lot of the components, because at the end of it, you need the cowling to be able to fit on top perfectly. Okay, so we're going on to the turbos. All right, so you got a turbo on the other side as well. Basically similar design in reverse, or on the opposite side, I guess. So here we're finishing up around the engine. So you got the covers. So the twin cam covers there. They're going on each side of the V. You got the roll bar with the aerials. These are the aerodynamic covers. So they're particularly important to get seated right. So usually when I put those in there, I won't be gluing those in until the actual cowling goes on, so you can make sure that they fit exactly perfectly. Okay, so then we start to flip this around over here. All right, okay, so here we've got some of the engine management system going on the back of the roll bar hoop. You've got the shocks with the push rods going onto the lower arm, drive shafts going in. And here is just showing you how you make sure that's all aligned, make sure the angles are right, because you have to remember that drive shafts, they're going to have to fit inside that rear hub perfectly as well. Okay, so the top arm is fit on the back. Okay, so that's the top of the gearbox cover there. You've got the intake trumpets and the rear hubs. So you can see the ducts there for the disc brakes. You've got another radiator that just goes and sits just in front of the wing mount. Over here we start mounting up the tyres onto the wheels. They just push through. Putting on those decals I told you about earlier on the wheels. So a little bit tricky. So basically they've got a protective cover which looks like baking paper. You keep that on there just so you don't get fingerprints stuck onto it, because the adhesive is actually on the face. You cut out the pieces around the design, and then you have to peel the top section off the cardboard. And you want it as thin as possible because that's where you're applying the water. If it's too thick, it takes ages and you probably get it placed in the wrong spot. Okay, so we're going towards the end here now. You got the disc brakes, they're getting mounted. Wheels, as you can see, they're all screwed on. Over here there's some sort of reservoir that goes on top of the gearbox housing there. Alright, going towards the final straight here, we've got the wing going together. So two piece here for that aerofoil. It's got this big massive aerofoil with a gurney flap, and that's how it seats itself in the I can't remember what you call that now. The side of the wing. It'll come to me. And then here we start the final sections of the cowling. So these parts of the cowling here, this bodywork, usually I would have this all glued up and painted at the same time, because these can be just a hassle and they'll leave all these ugly lines if you apply them separately. Okay, so the top part is all white with the fluoro, which I would paint on, and then the lower section is all black because that's all carbon fiber. And then the cowling drops in. You've got the side panels to the front wing, and then it shows you here how the wheels can move after you've finished it. And that's complete. So that is my open box of this very rare and very desirable kit of the Tamiya 1/20th scale McLaren MP4 powered by Honda. So not only is it a classic because it's a Tamiya vintage kit, it's a beautiful kit to go together, looks amazing when it's on your shelf, and it's also historically very, very amazing too. I mean, seeing that it's a World Championship winning car, two great drivers, one of them that is no longer with us, and also one of the most iconic pairings of McLaren and Honda as well. So if you can find one of these, get onto it.